Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 43 of Titanic Talks, and Happy New Year. Here we are in the year 2024, and over the holidays, we went to Michigan. It was great. My son did great on the airplane, kind of. And how many times during the Christmas soiree and holiday get-together, how many times did I say, I'm looking forward to 2014? About 14 times. And I am going to be 37 years old. So trying to wrap my head around that one, pretty crazy. 37, it's really the first year. You know, a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, when you hit 30, that's like a crazy one. I didn't really have that. 35 was a little weird. I'm like, well, I guess I'm like, that's halfway through the 30s. 36, it was like, yeah, okay. 37, whew, seems a little old to me. But then I talk to people in their 70s, and they're like, I'd give anything to go back to 37. You know what's kind of insane? I saw, they did some big poll. I want to say it was like nursing homes. They did this whole study around the world, and they asked all these elderly folk, if you could go back to any year in your life, what would it be? And the top answer, by a large margin, was 36, which I understand because I agree. 36 was the best year of my life, if I had to pick one, and it was the most relaxed year of my life, which I understand a lot of people are kind of going through. It's a weird time. It seems like 2020 just really crushed what reality is for a lot of people. And things seem like they haven't really been the same, which I get. It's definitely an adjustment period. But I was talking to a friend recently, one of my many friends, every time I speak with them, they're always, when you come back to LA? And I had to tell them, I was like, I think I'm in the midst of my transcendentalist moment. Not sure if you've ever read any Thoreau, but the just being out, kind of in the middle of nowhere, after living in a big city for about 14 years. It's like, part of me is like, am I just getting really comfortable? Obviously starting a family will do that. And on the other hand, it's like, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I was more productive last year than I've been in a very long time, probably since 2017. What is that? Every 5 years or so, I go through a big creative burst. And, the past couple of years getting back from the holidays, I understand, it's what, Monday, January 8th here. For a lot of you watching, you're probably back at work for the first time, or maybe you've been working throughout the holidays, and maybe people are back in school, the kids are back in school. And I kind of prepped for that. I got myself, I guess I put myself in the mindset. Maybe it's because I went home back to Michigan for the holidays. And it was like, okay, so since last Monday, I've kind of been in the groove. I kind of started the year off with a bang. And we are, what does Chelsea call it? Raw dog in life. Not even drinking caffeine. No alcohol, no medicine. Been off the bad stuff for years, but boy, is it, I'm tired. And sleep has been quite interesting. And the boy has been sleeping with his mommy and daddy. If you've never had a child before, they go through what is referred to as sleep regression. And my son figured out how to climb out of his crib. So in an effort to prevent any sort of, him being in a milk drunk daze, wanting to get out of his crib and, falling and, hurting himself, I felt it was time. He's almost 2. It was time for a big boy bed. So we took one of the railings off. He has one of those cool high-tech convertible cribs. And it has been interesting. And what does that mean? At any hour of the night, he can just waltz right into mommy and daddy's room, which is funny. But, you can't. I can't. I'm not very good about putting him back into his own bed. Come on, buddy. And then about an hour later, I wake up to getting kicked in the face and all that. So, hey, there you have it. Happy New Year, everybody. We're having fun over here. Really excited about this year in a weird way. And that's been communicated to me from several friends. I think it was like the day after, Boxing Day, the day after Christmas. Is that yeah, I don't know. Americans don't really do that. I would always see it on the calendar when I was a kid, like Boxing Day. Didn't know what it was. Still kind of don't. I was already getting calls from friends about projects that are, we're trying to get ahead of everything. And there's just a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline. And the past couple of years, I don't know, maybe the past like 4 or 5 years, that first week or two of January is very difficult. And this year, it's actually been pretty good. So, all right, hey, pick on back up. Let's get into it. And I'm excited because I think I have this weird theory. When the year is an odd number, I think I'm superstitious in that realm. When the year is an odd number, 2023, I was like, although it was a very good year. The even years I have found, and if I go through my professional career, which I suppose I started professionally, 2006 is when I really kind of started getting into it. All this video and music stuff. 7 was rough, 8 was great, 9 was rough, 10 was pretty, and so on and so forth, right? And we're in an even year. So, hey, maybe that's me, touching my hat 5 times before I throw a pitch. But it is what it is. And, I think this year is just going to be a lot of new music. I'm creative directing several music videos, which is great because now I'm just kind of overseeing a lot of projects, which lets me bring on more, and then I can this to me, I think I'm looking at it as the year of the more gray I get in my beard, and I get another year added to my age, as we all do. I'm really looking for, hopefully being of service in harnessing up and coming new talent. And there's a couple of videos that I'm working on right now, overseeing production and creative directing and bringing on new directors who I can, younger people who I can kind of give little tips and tricks. And as we get into production and on the day of shooting and stuff, I'm hoping to just kind of maybe Rick Rubin it a little bit. I've made a lot. We've talked about this before on this program here. I've made a lot of videos, hundreds and hundreds, probably over 1,000 at this point. No, definitely over 1,000 at this point. But actual full blown like music videos, I've done a lot of them, and it's just kind of you get to a point with anything. It's like maybe I could be more of service, and I could be. Maybe my biggest strength is supporting and harnessing, facilitating new talent, and then doing that in multiple projects. So we'll see though. I mean, it's like anything in life, especially creatively, it's always it's a learning process, and we're here to learn. I've been learning a lot of new. I got a new piano. I've been learning a lot of piano, which is definitely. I think I'm going to start taking piano lessons. I've talked about this, I know, but the more into jazz I get, the more confused I get. Certainly with all these Christmas songs. Did I talk about this already? I did about 10 minutes before I did this, so I apologize if I'm forgetting the microphone wasn't plugged in. You know, it's just me here. It happens to the best of us. But if I haven't said it already, thank you for everyone who listened to my new Christmas song, I'm Glad It's Christmas. And for everyone who donated, every year around Christmas, we do a little something extra. And I think it's maybe 4 or 5 years straight. We've contributed to mda.org. And that is, I should bring up exactly what they say because I always missay it, but to help accelerate research and advance care for those living with neuromuscular diseases. Someone had asked, what's your connection with MDA? Years ago, when I was in LA, they had requested, MDA had contacted, I think, our management, and we're wondering, a couple of people who were pretty big fans, almost like a Make-A-Wish kind of situation. And we were happy to come along and went to a couple events, and it really opened my eyes to like, oh wow, a little bit goes a long way with donations of that sort. And what we do here, we're a ragtag little group, but we were able to raise a decent amount of money actually, and they do really great things. It's a very expensive thing to deal with for people with and the families of people who are dealing with neuromuscular diseases, and just being able to help out with little things like flights and hotels to get to the best doctors, because you may be living in a state and you have to fly all the way across the country to get a procedure done. And that a lot of the times is not covered with whether it's insurance or, anyone who has already thrown so much money at a terrible thing. But hopefully, in our lifetimes, we'll see that kicked in the booty. And so thank you for everyone who donated, because that makes me feel very good. And being involved with MDA over the years, just great people, very, very good vibe. And that was fun making that song too. I recorded a couple songs, wrote a couple songs, was going to cover Little Drummer Boy, didn't have a drum. And a friend of mine, actually a songwriter friend, had asked, he said, wow, the chords are really interesting, and I love all the chromatic stuff that's going on. And I was like, well, thank you for noticing that, because that's what I like as well. But they're like, how'd you come up with the chords? And I said, which is the truth here, I was picking up some groceries. Do you say grocery or grocery? When I was a kid, it was grocery, but I found over the years that I think I prefer grocery, because you always see, like in commercials, in your grocer's freezer. You can find our product in your grocer's freezer. And I had a project called grocerybag.tv. I thought that sounded better than grocerybag.tv, which I would always say grocery, but hey. Are there any words in your vernacular over the years that you have made a conscious decision to switch over to? Another one of mine, this right here, what do you call this? Well, I guess sparkling water. You can read it. Maybe you can't. It's kind of bright. In Michigan, that's a pop. Pop. And now, I think that kind of switched when I maybe was living in Chicago, or well, I guess in Chicago, some people call it pop. Soda was more popular in Chicago as far as I can remember. But certainly in California and Texas, no one calls it pop. Soda. And I had to rewire my brain. Comment below what your word is that you switched. Sparkling water, lemon, HEB. And it's deluxe. I drink about 50 of these a day. No, probably 5. And why were we talking about groceries? Oh, because I was coming back from the grocery store, had the local radio station on. And in all the stores, they have the Christmas music going on, and I just kind of started like singing a little melody. This is, if you're a longtime viewer, you know that this is not the way I usually do it. But I had the melody first. Sometimes it's like that. My song Trust Fund, I remember I was in the shower. I was living in Los Angeles, right on Sunset. I was taking a shower, and I thought, where mama. Came up with Trust Fund, wrote it, recorded it, made the video. That song's done very well over the years, and it wasn't until years later I realized it's Somewhere Over the Rainbow. I was just playing it. My son got a little piano/xylophone from my godparents for Christmas. And he was playing with it, and whenever he's playing with his little musical toys, I always like to write little songs, and I was playing with the xylophone, which technically is what most people call a xylophone. It's actually like a variation of a glockenspiel, but hey. And yeah, it's that big. At the time, my main man, Chris Griotti, which I meant to. He got me a beautiful sweater for Christmas. I'll wear it in the next episode. It says Sinclair on it, and I thought that was very nice. From everyone's favorite Chris Griotti and Giannino Salucci is very sweet. Thank you, boys, if you're watching this. I'll wear it next time. But at the time, I remember very clearly, there's these little things that especially if you're a musician, that you pick up on. I remember one conversation I was having with Chris once was just about melody and how he's like, yeah, you should really play around with big interval jumps. And so I made sure that around that time, it would have been around the time I wrote Trust Fund, the big interval jumps. So instead of going, if you're, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, I would just make sure like do and do were the jumps in between notes instead of just do, re, mi up and down the scale, right? And I had no idea, but yeah, it's pretty much Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It's what are you going to do? The more nursery rhymes and songs for littles that I listen to, all of the classic Wheels on the Bus and things of that nature. They're all very simple. They're usually all contained within one octave. And, you've got do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, 7 notes, right? At least, in your standard major scale. And it's like, how do you use those? And I'll never forget Chris saying like, oh yeah, you should try doing some big interval jumps. And he was correct. A lot of people ask me about writing melodies and stuff, which, hey, I've got a long way to go, but I've got a couple where I'm like, yeah, that's a keeper. And certainly the kiddos responded to Trust Fund. And it's so simple, right? And I basically just took on that song, I don't know, like the 3 or 4 most common chord progressions, but didn't repeat them, I would change the chord progression every time in the chorus, just slightly enough. And that's how I like to do it. And ever since then, I think I've been utilizing that. Now, the complete opposite of that would be with I'm Glad It's Christmas, the new Christmas song I put out that my friend was asking about. I had the melody first, and I did the voice memo, the voice note, just whatever was comfortable, and got home, and I was like, I think that's pretty good. And I sat down, and then I figured the chords out later and realized, there's a lot of chromatic stuff going on. So it goes from a really nice, that one's an A. And it starts with a nice, a major 7, A major 7. And then, of course, the way I love doing it is just plop on down with your root note, go up 1 fret, leave the rest of the chord the same. You got a tasty little diminished chord there. Is that minor 7 flat 5? No, that wouldn't be a minor 7 flat 5. But fun stuff nonetheless. And little B minor 7, B flat minor 7, and then what is that, a D6, I believe, C, D. I would have to have my guitar with me to, pretty sure. Anyway, chords I've never used before. And that's what we like to do here, is work in a little bit of that Yaz flute. Was that Anchorman? Or he says he plays a little bit of Yaz flute, and then he just pulls a flute out of his sleeve. Very silly. Hey, fun stuff. I was going to say 2014 again. I said 2014 so many times in the past week, and it's 2024, decade longer than I've been saying it is. And it's an election year. No. I do not like politics at all. And there's got to be a way. Let me know if you know of any way of doing this. There's got to be a way on your phone to stop. Maybe just put in keywords. I don't want to hear anything about Trump or Biden or any of the people who think they're going to be president. It's a gross. The system is gross, and it's like you open one app, which my screen time is so far down, you'd be so proud of me. I've got I looked yesterday, it was like 2 minutes on Instagram, 2 minutes on TikTok for the week. It's mostly just YouTube. And I have to wonder, because I'd say about 90% of my YouTube, it's just the Wiggles. It's the Wiggles and Miss Rachel. Sometimes Teletubbies, but I think my son is a little freaked out by Teletubbies, as is his daddy. I'm every time it's on, I'm just like, it's weird. I find myself just getting like sucked into it. And he does too. But it's not designed for a 36-year-old man. They know what they're doing with those videos. And it makes me wonder how much of my screen time, I'm just trying to just get away from it, especially with all this election stuff, and everyone's just going on and on about defending democracy, and it's our last chance for democracy. And it's like, how come all the people talking about defending democracy are the ones suppressing being able to vote for someone? I despise, we've said it here once, and I'll say it again. If you want to run for president, you're a psycho. I don't like any of them. And, but, I do notice one side that claims to be anti-fascist, and it's like, hey man, kind of sounds a little fascist, what you're doing. I don't know. This just the gaslighting is Not good. My prediction, though, since we're here, Biden's not going to win. And here's why. By the way, I know nothing about politics, but, you know, all I keep hearing about anytime I see the news headlines or anything on social media, it's always, look how great the economy's doing. And I'm like, why is a bag of Doritos $9? I don't know. It's all these people with a ton of money, and they're like, oh, the economy's so great. And it's like, you've got $50 million. And the average person, I've told the story before. I remember the first time Trump won, I was having a conversation with my friend in LA, and this was like when they were doing this was like, 2015, when they were doing all the debates and stuff. And I remember telling my friend, like, yeah, I think there wasn't a nominee yet. And I was like, I think Trump's going to win. And his jaw just hit the floor. And he just laughed at me. He's like, you're an idiot. I'm like, okay. And he did. And why is that? Well, because the average person is a lot smarter than the media, I guess, gives them credit for. And enough time has passed. That was just like a giant middle finger to the entire hoo-ha establishment. Anyway, this stuff's boring. I won't get into it. But it just, I wonder all the time, like how is the average person getting by? I don't know. It's like I've had a couple of pretty good years. It's like I'm comfortable. Very grateful that I don't have to stress about hey, how am I going to pay the bills? Because there was a decade of my life, pretty much all of my 20s, where I would have to sell guitars, and it was really a trying time. It was a bummer, man. Looking back at it, I was so fired up. I'm going to make this amazing music, and people are going to love it, and I'm going to make these videos, and they're going to be weird and creative and fun and accessible and cool, and look, they're going to go viral. And I'm telling everyone around me at this time, I don't know, I'm probably like 24, 25, hey, this is going to happen. This is going to happen. And everyone was just like, dude, you need to like check your head. And then it did happen. And I was so burned out by the time things took off for me that I didn't even have the energy to be like, told you. And I still don't, because it's like, I think a lot of it was just, I don't know, got lucky. But the harder I work, the luckier I get, right? Everyone's suing each other. I don't know if you saw the Reese's lawsuit. That was funny. Someone's suing over their, I guess, like false advertising. They actually do have a little bit of a case. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere. I would imagine that Big Chocolate probably has some great attorneys. The other funny one was the Kat Von D tattoo. She's another one of those people. I know she's, I believe she's in recovery, but is, turning her life around. I know she's, was recently baptized, which I think is great. I've met her. I've been to her house. A friend of mine was living in her back house. That's where I got the idea, actually, in my fireplace. And in her fire, she had this beautiful fireplace, and there was probably 1,000 or thousands of candles just all over, and it looked really cool. I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. And I have a fireplace in my house, and it's an old house, so I don't know much about chimneys. It got a little smoky in the house when I built a fire, and I was like, oh, we'll just stick to candles. But it reminded me, I was like, oh yeah, well, Kat Von D, she had this beautiful arrangement of candles in her house. Anyway, someone's trying to sue her for a portrait of Miles Davis that she tattooed on someone. And I guess like the estate of or the photographer who took the photo of Miles Davis is trying to sue her. And it's like, man, that is so gross. It's so American. Like, look, I'm the first person to be like, yeah, intellectual property, like whoever made it or took the photo or whatever, that is their intellectual property, their IP, and they are entitled to any money that is accrued based on that work of art. But this one's a little weird. It's like you took a photo of someone famous. Like if the photo was of someone who wasn't famous to begin with, no one would care about the photo. Let's call a spade, right? And I guess the argument you would say is, well, you posted it. I don't know if she posted it on her socials or whatever. I guess from what I read, it was a free tattoo anyway. So she didn't even make any money off of it. So I guess the argument would be, well, you're using it to promote your brand and it's a lucrative, multi-million-dollar brand. And I guess you could argue maybe that would have been used as a form of advertisement. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. But it's like, hey, you took a photo of a famous person in like the 60s and someone tattooed it onto someone. I don't know. I just don't know. All anyone does in this country is sue people. It's gross. Been through it. Didn't go to court. Judge said, huh? No. And I said, thank you, Judge, for having that opinion. And hey, it is what it is. I'm trying to wrap my head around it's 75 degrees and sunny here and it's January. It's just, why can't it be 46 degrees, rainy? Hey, I should wear a jacket. It's nice because my son gets to go outside and play. And at this age, he's almost 2 years old. He wants to go outside and play. He would live outside. He like father, like son. When I was a kid, I lived outside. And it's nice being that was a big decision to move to the country when we found out we were going to be having our first child. It was like, yeah, we should make sure he has a nice big yard. That was my main thing. I've lived in less than ideal circumstances, and as a dude in your 20s, that's one thing, but now it's like, got a nice big comfy house, never going back to an apartment, and then with a family, my main thing was we need to make sure we have a yard. And recently, as he's been all he wants to do is go play outside, which is great. And we have a bunch of big, beautiful trees, but with the storms, one of the trees is dying. So whenever there's a storm, trees come down, and I've been chopping wood. I'm just a dad, writing all this music and making all these videos. It's not as pretty as it sounds. Chopping wood. And it's been adorable, though, because, monkey see, monkey do. He just kind of follows around and pretty much does whatever I do. So you really got to, as a dad, I have to be very aware. I've been very conscious about what I say, but two, how I say it. And I'm usually not one ever to raise my voice, but it's instead of raising my voice whenever he has to be, when he's out of line, I just get into my low register very softly. But he knows, hey, you can't be grabbing people's faces or, scratching or anything like that. And I know a lot of kids go through biting. He hasn't done that, luckily, but I know a lot of kids go through a biting phase. I hear that's around 3, so we'll check back in on that one. But I'll see how low my voice can get for that. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And did you see the new South Park that they did? I'm just a giant fan of anything that Trey Parker and Matt Stone have ever done. One of my favorite movies of all time is Cannibal the Musical. It's the first movie they ever did. And they were students when they made it. Feature film, it's a musical. It's great. The music's so funny in it. But they did their new special that came out, I think unannounced. It just came out maybe the week of Christmas, and finally got around to watching it. And it's man, those guys just don't miss. It was the whole gag was they were kind of clowning on Prime energy drink, or all these energy drinks, and how they're just marketed towards kids, and it was very tongue-in-cheek. And if you haven't watched that, you should. But certainly if you haven't seen Cannibal the Musical, you really should watch it. It's so funny. And I think Trey Parker and Matt Stone are two of the greatest to ever do it. And there's always this thing oh, what's funnier, Family Guy or South Park? It's well, they're both funny, but man, easily South Park is going to win, And it's amazing to see how throughout their, I don't know, I think I was in 4th grade when South Park came out, and suddenly all these kids were wearing Cartman t-shirts and stuff. And there's all the hoo-ha, all the parents, they're all freaked out about it. And there's the whole satanic panic of I guess the late 90s with Marilyn Manson and all these people. And who I recently heard from, actually, and is doing very, very well. I don't know how public they are about their current journey, but I can report doing good. Last time I saw him, gave him a hug and was I have a weird feeling this is the last time I'm ever going to see you. Very weird. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is it's always so strange when you get to know these people. I always wish I could have had a conversation with David Bowie. I've been able to meet so many people. And one of them who is still alive, who I would just love to have a conversation with, even if it was only for 5 minutes, it would be Trey Parker. And, that's something that the stuff he and Matt Stone have done over the years, every single movie they've done has been fantastic. And to have a show going on for that long and still be funny and still, you can see the evolution of the comedy and the mindset of everything. And I've always seen everything that I do as comedy first, which was weird when everything kind of exploded. And, there's a small group of people, I would say most of which who are still sticking around watching something like this kind of got the joke, but a lot of people didn't. And that kind of, now when I work with other people, I'm almost more maybe it's better to be a little more on the nose. But I think they were very smart to do it as in a cartoon. So it's obviously silly to begin with, right? Yeah, hey, there you have it. Brain is not working at all. Haven't been, when you're just living life with no, even stimulants, no coffee. It's just part of it is man, this is really boring. But then again, I remember when I was really bored. Really, really bored. That, I think probably the most bored I've ever been. When you're a kid, I don't know if that really counts, but as an adult, I remember just hoping, wishing, and praying that something would happen. And like with my music and career, I guess. But looking back, it's like, well, it makes sense because 2007, 2008, when I really first started kind of getting into it, hindsight is 2020, obviously, but there's a pretty substantial financial collapse that happened. I remember the guy I worked with, very well-off person. I was working for a startup, and I was with him. This would have been 2008, like when the banks crashed, and I was kind of his like right-hand man. And we took his Mercedes E-Class downtown, living in Chicago. He's like, I have to go to the bank. And African-American gentleman. And when he got out of the bank, he was whiter than me. And I was like, everything okay? And he's like, yeah, I just lost $5 million in credit. I was like, whoa. And that's when everything kind of shut down. Kids these days, hopefully they never have to deal with something like that. But, I had the conversation with my parents, they were just asking about all of the why they think my generation, and this wasn't, well, maybe it was pointed towards me, I don't know, but doing pretty well. But just the conversation had gone to like how difficult it probably is for people of my generation and younger. And, they say the projections, at least for, economy and quality of life, all these experts are like, yeah, this is like millennials are the first generation that probably will have a lower quality of life than their parents. And who knows how true that is, but I tend to think that's probably, most of my friends don't own houses. I'm about to be 37. And most of my friends don't have families. Most of my friends are not married. And even the friends who are doing quite well are either struggling with anxiety and depression, or who knows? It's a multitude of things. But the way I explained to my parents when I was at home in Michigan, it's like, well, I know every generation has, they had Vietnam and the Cold War, and they had to go when they were, kids in school, they had to do the like hide under the desk for like a nuclear bomb drill. So no discredit to them or any, I don't want to sound like I'm not young, but young-ish person being like, oh, our generation has it so bad. But the way I kind of explain it is like, well, when I was in 5th grade, going into like middle school, Columbine happened. And then when I was going into high school, I was a freshman in high school, 9/11 happened. And then I graduated high school and there was a financial collapse. And it was very difficult. I mean, there was like 4 years where I couldn't get a job. And this was the time where I was also, I kind of saw the writing on the wall there. I was like applying for all these jobs and I was like, well, I know I'm good at this video stuff. I never imagined like the music stuff would actually become a career. It was always fun time. And there's always the pipe dream though, of like, I was young and super motivated and had stars in my eyes, didn't know how the whole system worked yet. And like, oh, I want to do rock and roll. But even then, I think, and it's probably from my dad, just being realistic about it, like, oh, have fun with that, but also have a real job. And it was very difficult. And then you fast forward, I guess the next milestone in life would be like starting a family, getting married and all that. And the world shuts down 2020, and it's just like every major milestone in life for millennials, at least, I think people around my age, it's just like this, each milestone I've kind of approached in life, there's always a catastrophe. And the reverberations of all those catastrophes, we continue to hear the reverberations of those or feel them in life. And I don't want to excuse that as any sort of like, oh, well, that's why I don't have $1 billion. It's like, and no, it's not that. And yes, we've got smartphones and Wi-Fi and air conditioning and refrigeration. Like, I get it. We're spoiled. But, like I said, I don't really know a lot of people who own a house. And I know a lot of people who do pretty well, actually, who are struggling to make ends meet. And so, yeah, it just makes me think, how are people, as we're getting into an election year, how are they supposed to take anyone seriously who's like, look how great the economy is? Because it's not. And it's not just here in the States. And look, maybe it is like they say. Maybe it is just, post 2020 and all the major corporations who basically decide what we eat and how we travel and all that. Maybe they were just like, yeah, well, here's your new normal. We're just charging more. That could be it too. I suppose that would be the argument, right? It's like, well, it's not like the government is making the bag of Doritos $8 or whatever. Deep thoughts with Titanic Sinclair. Let's take some listener questions. Maybe we've got some more fun stuff to talk about. I feel like I started this off like all happy-go-lucky. I'm more like, I recently, maybe I talked about it recently. I read 1 Second After, and then watched the movie that was totally ripping it off. Leave the World Behind, I think, whatever that Netflix one was. Here's one from Andrew. Just to make this technically a question. Oh, Andrew sent a very nice email. And at the end of it said, just to make this technically a question, I just ask you to continue to seek God in all that you do and continue being awesome. Andrew, I will do that and continue to do that. The journey of life and spirituality and trying to make sense of all this, it's different for everyone. Certainly it's been a eye-opening journey for me. And I think with a little bit of, a lot of humility and a lot of therapy and psychedelics too. To me, I think this is why I'm kind of getting further and further away from, whether it's projects that I'm approached with, hey, will you produce this or make this video, direct, blah, all that stuff. What I have come to learn is, for a long time, this is very hippy-dippy of me, but I think this is, I don't know, maybe having psychedelic experiences that truly changed my outlook on life and for the better and influenced me in a way. A big thing I learned on one of my big trips was it was like all these geometric, psychedelic, multi-faced gestures were asking me over and over again. They would like rotate. And each one they would be like laughing at me, and they would, just ask me like, why do you keep contributing to suffering? I still don't know what that means. But when I came out of it, I was pretty shook by it. And I was like, well, I need to make sure that whatever I do, it's not contributing to suffering. And I feel like a lot of the stuff that I used to do, it was made to trigger a fight or flight, maybe, response in the viewer, which was reaching into the psyche. And instead of tapping into the place of joy and happiness and comfort, it was suffering. And you can get into all the Buddhist philosophy that life is suffering and this and that. And I get it. And there's certainly, believe you me, I've had my fair share of times where, I sit there staring at the ceiling and I'm like, life is suffering. But, perspective. And I think that's why I'm a proponent for the psychedelic experience. Because a big takeaway for me was, what can I do to contribute more, be of service of and contribute to joy and not suffering. Rambling here. Here's one from Matt. Would you ever put I Have Teeth or anything else like Thick Jello out on physical copies? Would love to have it on vinyl or at least CD. As well as maybe putting out downloadable Logic Pro X files or stems of past Titanic Sinclair songs. Ooh, good question, Matt. Yes, this year I do plan on putting out, coming up on the 10-year anniversary of I Have Teeth. I've always wanted to do vinyls. I'll probably do some CDs too. I would love to put out stems of those songs, but most of what I have are, especially on the older stuff, I just have the masters of that, which, like the master bounce, the wave file, which is the highest quality export or bounce. But, I know for a fact I Have Teeth and Thick Jello. Those are on a hard drive somewhere. And after going through the series of, going through a breakup and moving and this and that, and hard drives get left and they're floating around somewhere on a hard drive. I don't know. I would love to be able to remix Thick Jello, and I Have Teeth too. But because I do have I could do remasters of those, and I think when I do the vinyl and CD release 10-year anniversary of I Have Teeth, they will be remastered at a bare minimum, which I know I can get those sounding much better now. 10 years, you learn a lot with sonics. And hey, over the holidays, I was just kind of going through looking for like an old Christmas song I had done. And I found like 2 or 3 songs, B-sides from I Have Teeth. So I guess it would be like a deluxe edition and I sat there thinking, how did this not make the record, the album? So there are songs that nobody has heard from the I Have Teeth era. And one in particular, I listened to it like 10 times in a row, and it sounds pretty good too. I was like, why didn't I put this on the album? But when you're making an album, but that's why you always see people with the deluxe edition or whatever. Here's one from Gemini Lou. Was wondering if you could talk about the pros and cons of the more industry side of music, things like labels, managers, agents, etc., and how to go about contacting people in this area of the business. Recently made a music video for my latest track with no budget. That's all the budget I have right now, and I think I did a decent enough job with what I had on hand. But I think it would be beneficial for me to get some sort of team together to bring out the best of what I have to offer, but I'm stuck on what to do about this. Sorry if this is a vague question, but I always appreciate the help and advice, Lou. Lou, I did watch your video for Hypnotize. If anyone wants to watch that, Gemini Lou is the artist. Hypnotize is the song. It was very cool, and I agree. If that's the one you meant, Lou. I watched it, enjoyed every ounce, and what you did with no budget. Hey, you're talking to the guy. Yeah, I mean, it's main advice. It's the advice I got. Write 30 to 50 more songs, and I always find, and to this day I do this when I have something. You'll know in your gut, but when you have something that you're ready to share, it's really good to have. It was a little bit easier when there was actual music scenes, but anyone in your circle whose opinion you trust, maybe they just recommend good music to you or good movies to you, and use them as a bounce board. And usually I find those people are creative as well, and so it's kind of this unspoken thing, but we share everything that we do, and you'll know when you got something really good. You know what I mean? And that's free, and I know there's resources too, whether it's like subreddits or different communities online. Maybe find one that's kind of in your vein. And I think, now is a good time just to put yourself out there. And if you go out saying, like, hey, I know there's like audio engineering is a good one on Reddit, or We Are the Music Makers is good. I don't know if they allow submissions. You'd have to check and see like in their rules or whatever, but there's a million different ways just to get kind of ideas together. I'm always happy when people send me stuff, and happy to talk about it. I kind of want to turn that into some sort of a series this year where it's, because I know a lot of you make stuff, and I'd love to, maybe not review it, but just take a listen and be like, hey, this is what's great. I would probably maybe do something like this. Same thing goes with videos. And then as far as the industry side, as you say, of music, labels, managers, agents, etc. It's like any other business or any other situation in life. I've worked with great labels, majors, indies, everything in between. I've worked with horrible ones, majors, labels, or indies, everything in between. Same thing goes for managers. I think I went without a manager for a really long time, and I interviewed realistically probably like 20 people, and I was just like, this is not for me. And then my old manager, Nick, the first meeting I had with him, I was like, that's the guy. You kind of know. And agents, I'm assuming you mean like booking agents. If you're playing live, you're going to need a booking agent. I would say start off local and see how much you can do. The number one thing, and I tell this to everyone I work with, the number one thing is just play live. If you can get any sort of bubbling up, and that's great. And the reason I say it is because it's one thing to approach a manager or a booking agent and be like, all a booking agent's going to say is, how many tickets are you selling? That's all they care about, period. Managers, if you can find someone, most of the time what happens is you start off with someone like that, or someone local, and that's great. I'm all for it. And if you get the project to a point to where you're having conversations with labels, and the first, typically you get in with the manager, and then if it gets big enough, a bigger manager is going to find you. You don't have to find them. It'll happen. Trust. And sometimes depending on your contract or your deal, sometimes there's a buyout where they'll buy you out of your management, and then the manager, then you get set up with an attorney. I would highly recommend working with someone that's not in bed, as they say, with your manager, and the puzzle pieces fall into place when the time is right. Trust me on this. And I get it. It's tricky nowadays because a lot of people don't have full bands. I'm assuming this is probably Lou, this is probably a solo effort. You're probably doing all the writing and production yourself and making the videos yourself. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I would recommend getting out there live, because with any booking agent, and probably manager too, any manager who's worth your time, they're probably going to want to see some sort of live thing. What is it like in a live situation? Kind of quick there, but and don't worry about the budget stuff. I know it kind of sucks. I mean, it took years for me to make $1 off of anything, but then you fast forward a couple of years and you've collaborated with a bunch of people. You've written some stuff that continues to stream well and maybe gets used in video games or a TV show or a movie or a commercial. And then suddenly you're getting, royalties and, all of that stuff comes later. And let's take one more here from Melody. Titanic, I recently found your podcast. Welcome. There's a lot to catch up on. Yes, there is. I was wondering one question. How do you make money these days? Well, Melody, I produce music for other artists and co-write, which is publishing. And now I'm creative directing. And I guess kind of with some of my friends that I work with, I guess it would be like producing content, I guess is what it is, which in a nutshell is just promoting the artist. And I usually do that project-based. And I'm lucky now to where I mostly get to work with friends, but I mean, anyone watching this, if you've got something, send it. I'm always looking for new stuff to work on, whether it's, I've been mixing a lot of records, and I love producing, I think more than anything, producing music. But even if it's not me, someone asked recently in another listener question, what does it cost to do a music video? Like for me to direct it, it's like, it takes a lot at this point for me to be like, because, you have to remember with a budget, it's not like I'm just getting $50,000 and I get 50 grand. It's like, no, like usually you end up spending most of that on getting the video to be right, to make it the incentive of a high budget for me is more so about, I want to be able to do the song justice with a video and be able to have it be whatever the vision is. And sometimes that vision it's a smaller thing, and that's cool. I mean, most of my stuff, my solo efforts, I don't know if I've spent more than maybe $1,500 to $2,000 on most music videos that I do for my own stuff. And sometimes it's literally no budget, but that's for my stuff, and that's my fun time. So I don't necessarily see that as even like a budget. It's like, oh, I need this lens or I need a filter or something like that, right? But that's kind of a funny question from Melody here. Because I guess that is kind of you see all these people on the internet. It's like, how do you make any money? But I mean, I've written, I think I have well over 100 songs that collect. And so you've got your like ASCAP royalties, and then there's like your mechanical royalties based off of streaming, and then people are downloading. And I've written a couple songs that have been very good, and luckily people continue to listen to them. And that's why I'm always a big proponent of do not sell your publishing unless you're looking at least $1 million offer on your publishing. And I would recommend, if you're at that point, obviously speak to an attorney, an entertainment attorney. And it hasn't hurt me to own my masters and to own all of my publishing. And luckily nowadays there's a lot of different collection services that for a small fee will collect on your behalf. But if anything, I would say maybe look into an admin deal for publishing, and maybe that's something for Lou as well. If your stuff is starting to kind of stream, maybe look at an admin deal. And the way I got into like meeting all of these people was just being friends with artists. I was the guy who could make videos, and I also wrote my own songs. And then suddenly I find myself, I'm in these writing sessions. You could maybe approach people who are up and coming and say, hey, you know, I'm a songwriter or producer, like let's do a track. And that's how it worked for me, is a lot of everyone, it seemed like everyone I knew when I was recently new to Los Angeles, a lot of people I was around had recently signed big deals or had just got a new manager, or just got a publishing deal. And those publishers, well, and managers and labels all want their artists to go out and write with anyone and everyone, because you never know what's going to happen. That's exactly what happened with my buddy Tommy English with Borns, you know, and Electric Love was like probably got 1 billion streams now. And that was literally both of my friends, you know, had just moved to LA. I had as well. And they were both like, hey, do you know anyone I can write with? Well, Tommy, you should write with Borns. And boom, suddenly you had just an unbelievable, well, they did a couple unbelievable albums together. And it was just because they asked. And I happened to be in the middle of that and making that connection. And that's one of my favorite things to do. And for Melody here to kind of round that out, you know, my career and what I do, and you know, especially at this point, it's a lot of, it's like part producer. I never claimed to be a manager because I'd never want to be a manager, but I kind of do that for a lot of people, borderlining on agent, because really all managers and agents do is like, they're kind of just like people who know people. And then we'll like, it's nice to have a buffer. What do they say? Good fences make good neighbors. It's a lot easier if you're a producer or an artist or a songwriter to have that buffer of another person and be like, hey, you know, I think I should get X amount for production of this. And then the manager then goes and talks to the label or the other artist team. And then they're, you know, let them fight it out, I guess, which is, sometimes it's a fight, but usually it's not. It's usually just a negotiation. And it's good to have that buffer. So I hope that answers those questions. I guess. I can hear it's windy outside. And hopefully that means the wind is blowing this treacherous 75 and sunny weather. And we'll get some nice cold, cozy rain. I've been making chili. How about music and food real quick? Food, I've been making chili. Turkey chili. Chelsea sent me an amazing recipe that she found on the World Wide Web. And I've been listening to the Lemon Twigs like crazy. I think they are the best band out right now. I would love to hear what you're listening to. Please send me some links. I would love to hear if you're making stuff. Send me an email at titanicsinclair@gmail.com. Also, if you have any questions, titanicsinclair@gmail.com. Put listener question in the subject so I know that it's a listener question. And if it's something that you made, maybe it's a video or a song, go ahead and do that. There's a service I use called Lander. And you can find me on there. It's really not set up the way it's not as easy as it should be, but if you just Google Lander, Landr, Titanic Sinclair, you'll find me on there on network.lander.com. And I have it on there where it's low cost mixing, production, and hooks, top lines. I think what I'm going to do this year, because I really want to support up and coming artists, and really for me, maybe selfishly, I just want to be working on new stuff. The system I designed last year for my work, it's opened up a lot of time for me to focus on the music end of stuff, because I'm really fast at videos. And like I said, with one of the listener questions, a lot of what I'm doing now is just kind of making the connections, getting people situated, and a lot of like promotional stuff. Not so much social media management, but campaigns for rollouts of promotional things for either tours or music, album releases, things like that. But I have on my Lander network, the services I have on there are hooks and top lines, mixing, and production. And you can go on there, and if you have a song that maybe you've got a couple verses, or I hear this all the time. One of my best friends in life sent me a song that he wrote and recorded a couple days ago, and immediately I was like, oh, you need a giant chorus. It's great. It's great as it is, but I have an idea for a big, giant, soaring hook, or a top line, as they say in the biz. And I keep the prices way down on there, because when you're working with like a big team and they've got the stack deck and they're on a label and stuff, the budgets get pretty lucrative. But on Lander, on my producer page for hire, that's for people who don't have like the manager or the big label or anything like that, but somewhere where I can help out and, hopefully take the song to the next level. And that's something I want to do a little bit more of. So check that out, network.lander.com/users/Titanic Sinclair, or it's just easier. Just do Lander and Google Titanic Sinclair. You'll find it. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this. I had a great time. I'm going to go stare at my calendar app here and figure out how these next couple of weeks are going to turn into a well-oiled rolling machine, because I'm still kind of feeling the holidays a little bit, but I'm sure you probably are too. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Much love, and take care of yourself.